join us. So I know all of you know who Eric is, but for those of you who might not, that one person on here, maybe, Eric, I'm super happy that you're here, man. It's a pleasure. First of all, I always love our conversations. This is just an extension of what you and I always talk about, and so I appreciate you being here. And for
Yeah, we were prepping yesterday, and it basically just turned into we were like, let's stop talking because I think we're doing it.
Exactly. So just for everyone here, just to introduce you real quick. And, I've had the great pleasure. I mean, I've worked with Eric, over the last couple of years, but really, I think over the last year and a half, you and I have, integrated more, with what you're doing and with what I'm doing. And I just have to say, it's just a effing pleasure that I've been able to get to know you and work with you more hands on. And for those of you, Eric is, a 20 plus year veteran in this business, certainly from the recruiting side, but really more in, business development, technology, leadership, and thought leadership in a very, very challenging segment of our business, which is recruiting and growth, but yet so much more, right? Because it's not just that, right? And so with your leadership and what you've built at Model Match and your experiences, I'm truly grateful that you're here to join me and have a fun conversation together, man.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, look, you're the guy that I probably tried to reach out to 15 plus years ago on a cold call, and you told me to piss off. And then here we are, we're best friends now. So it just sort of shows, when you create value or you find common ground, you build some trust, then you never know where that relationship, might land. So stoked to be hanging out with you guys today. A lot of the people I'm seeing names up there that I've gotten the chance to learn from and work with, and this is super cool. And I'll throw something out, Craig, and then you just take the reins. But
Yeah, yeah.
one of the things I love about conversations like this is that I think you and I are similar in the sense that there is not a one size fits all to this topic, right? And I get really put off, I guess, when I hear people sell that there's one way to do something. But to be able to learn what that is, you got to pay me. Like you got to pay me for me to tell you what that is. And I know that's not who you are. It's not who I am. I think the life cycle of building a business in that sense ends up being a little longer, but it's way more sustainable, which is so similar to like what we're going to talk about today is how the beginning stages relate to the end, the retention, the sustainability, the ability to add multiples. And so, I love that you and I will probably challenge each other on this a little bit today. And people on the call, feel free to throw in a chat because
Please.
let's play the game.
Yeah, no, I love it. And that's perfect. So, okay. So a couple things. One, I got my chat screen up, so I'm going to kind of pay attention as we go as well. So please use the chat and please use the reactions too. If you like what we're saying, give us some attention on this so we can go a little further, right? If you don't like what we're saying, shit, man, give us a thumbs down. We'll move on,
How about some
but
reactions on Nas? I think we
yeah.
got a few already.
And for those of you, that is Callie right here. She's also joining us, on the call today. So, um, okay. And then another thing is everybody on here, I would love to see and hear what is your current role? Are you originating? Are you a branch manager? Are you a regional? Are you an executive? Give us an idea if you could just put in the chat real quick what your role is, what your job description is, because that's going to help give us a little bit of information too that we can kind of tailor this conversation. So yeah, area manager, yeah, producing, branch manager, originator. And I love the fact that we have originators on here, by the way, because even though we're talking about, and I'm going to put recruit, this is just a fine print right now. Every time I say recruiting, it's going to be in quotation marks. All right. But as originators, you may not be recruiting other loan officers per se, but of course you're prospecting. You're always on the hunt. You're trying to grow your business. So this is a very relative conversation for everybody on this. So I just kind of want to make that point. Awesome. I appreciate everybody throwing up that. Yeah, great. This is what a great crew we have on here and a good division and scale of our job roles. So cool. All right. So Eric, you said something there that is a perfect way to start kind of launching, right? Like building a business. So you and I share the same philosophy. And I'll say it like this, right? Like recruiting is just an action inside of your growth plan. But we get so focused on recruiting that we lose sight of the bigger picture. And something that you and I probably stole this from you, which is if you want to start growing, stop recruiting. So what does that mean to you when I say that?
Well, yeah, I can't remember when the first opportunity was that I had to speak in front of a group, but I remember probably close to 15 years ago being in front of a group and was asked to come out and speak about quote recruiting, right?
Yeah.
And so the first thing we did was we started talking about the directive of recruiting. So where that comes from. Does it come from your CEO? Does it come from the president? Does it come with the head of production? Maybe it comes from your regional manager. But the second it comes up, like how do you feel? And then how do you feel about the things that you have to do next? What are the first couple of things that pop into your mind? And so this is before you had technology like Mentimeter or these presentation tools where you could do a survey from the audience and you could see how things pop up behind you. So people just started throwing out, how they thought. But I will tell you, the second I asked the question, everybody's body language changed. I mean, their shoulders dropped, their head went down. Some of them are looking over their shoulders to see if their, head of production is looking at them right now, hoping that they don't get called. And the reason is that their brain immediately skipped to, I now have to do something I don't want to do, which is make cold calls. And I hate making cold calls. I hate being told no. I hate it when I get a cold call. And so that led to me thinking about maybe one of the problems with recruiting is the word, is the way that we emotionally feel about it when we hear the word. So then how do we start connecting this thing we have to do to other things that we do anyway? So here's a story, quick example. Like a lot of us on this call who are super involved in their communities and aren't just originators or just mortgage bankers. I mean, we're all so much more than that. I serve on a local board of a nonprofit locally, right? And that nonprofit has multiple tentacles. So I serve on the kind of executive board, and then there's individual branches, for lack of a better term. Since we're talking about mortgage banking here, I'll call it branches that also have their own individual boards. And not that long ago, we had attrition, which by the way happens with you as an originator. You have attrition with your agents. You have attrition if you're a branch manager with loan officers. You have attrition with branches if you're a regional. But we had attrition on the board just because their term was up and people were falling off. So we needed to replace some of this attrition. We then took a minute to look at, well, what skills are we lacking as a board? And one of those skills was we needed some financial skills. We needed some sort of finance expert. Okay, so what did we do? And one of the things I did, I went to freaking Google because there was no other better platform for me to start doing my research. And I just started looking at accountants, CPAs, financial planners, wealth managers within a particular geographic market. I made a list based upon how big the company looked, right? And maybe some of the skill sets I saw there. But then I took that list, and what I do, I took it back to the board. Show me anybody's got a relationship with these people. Raise your hand, say what the relationship is, and either you make the phone call or I'll make the phone call based upon that connection. Ultimately, we started off with 50 opportunities. We scaled that down to 10. We scaled it down to 3. We found our person. We hired somebody on the board. Craig, what was I doing?
You were auditing, assessing, asking questions, identifying, drawing out insights.
And that crap word, recruiting. I was recruiting. I mean, how is that much different than some of the best practices necessary to go through the process of adding more opportunity to your current business if you're an originator, or more people to your team if you're a branch or a regional or a head of production? So that's when I think about this concept. I hate the word recruiting. And maybe, look, for those on the call, feel free to get a better word, throw it up in the chat. I would love for us to come up with a better word for it. But the other problem with this word is when we think about recruiting, we don't involve the originator in that conversation or that process. And the truth is, and I would think, and maybe some can jump in here, but if you're an originator, those that have built your business and continue to build your business, isn't that what you're doing? You're either recruiting referral partners that you don't currently have a relationship with, or honestly, you're recruiting market share from the ones that you already have a connection with. And the best practices from pre-funnel and then through the funnel that I know we're going to talk about are very similar.
Yeah. Well, and there's something I just want to maybe kind of crystallize something right here. Cause right. Like one thing I lead with in my growth leadership coaching, for example, is the 5 stages of recruiting. And everything you were just talking about, the first stage is insights. Like, look at how much time you put in to gather insight. Who's in my market? What are we looking for? Right? Because so often, again, the word recruiting has gotten so demonized in this business because recruiting just means I better go bang the phones because my boss told me if you don't grow, you die. So now we're cold calling. And how many originators are on this call right now who love it when you get a call from a recruiter, right? There's a better way. But to your point, you spent thoughtful time to generate insights first. And insights, it's not just transactional data. That's where we typically stop. Okay, I'm going to pull my data. I'm going to go in a model match. I'm going to pull my data. I want 50% plus in purchases, doing at least, 12 million a year, whatever your data points are. But then we stop right there. We're not getting to know this candidate before we even know them. We need to start understanding. Well, first of all, we got to look internally first. Like, what is my value proposition? What is it for me personally? What is it for my branch? What is it for my company? What is it that's unique? What do I care about? Because even value prop, I'll put that in quotes too. I'm going to do a lot of quotes today, right? Because we don't want it to be cheesy, but there's something you connect with. There's something you connect with. And I want everyone to hear me when I say this. People connect with people, not product.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And so much of mortgage recruiting is all about product. We can do this and we have this rate and we have this product. Like, what? That's kind of just table stakes. Sort of everybody has it. Why are you with this branch? Why are you with this branch manager? Why are you with this organization? What is it that you connect to? Because people, and when you're recruiting, you want to model match. There's another quote right there. There's an over under of how many times I do.
But you don't have to quote model match. It's a real thing.
No, I know it's a real thing, but the way I was using it was,
I'm just messing with you.
So anyway.
Well, you make me think of something also,
Yeah.
Craig, though, that I know we'll get to, and that is the cycle of business development. If we're not going to use the word recruiting, this cycle, you said people work with people. So let's say people join people. Well, you know what else they do? People leave people. Many times the reason why you lose someone or they leave the organization, and I know there's a lot of people on this call today that have probably done, maybe it's informal in this business, but exit type interviews. Hey, why did you decide to make this change and leave our group? And man, there is nothing worse than finding out that they left the organization because they got excited about another opportunity based upon a tool or a resource that you already have. They just didn't know about it, or they didn't know how to best utilize that tool or resource, or it could be they just don't trust you anymore. So and the reason why this is important is this process of people joining people and then staying with people actually starts from the very first interaction.
100%. And I want to clarify one thing you said, right? Like, if we're just selling product, then we're just selling a transaction. So in our recruiting, if we're really only transactional in our conversation, right, then it's a transactional relationship by trade. Obviously we want it to garner a relationship, but if we can start earlier in that process to really develop and hone that in, for one thing, you're going to attract the people that are like you, the model match, right? But for the other thing, we also want to avoid the people that don't fit when we don't have value alignment. It's disaster. Everybody on here knows it's disastrous when we bring the wrong people into the organization. Hard to unwind, costs a lot of money, and it's just awful. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. So we do have to slow down.
The word culture gets thrown around a lot in this business, and I do believe that that culture is a real thing. However, the sensitivity of that word, the sensitivity of culture, it's actually more sensitive to where you bring someone in that's the wrong one than when you bring someone in that's the right one. It's sort of like, we're all living in this world of social media and news that's flying at us from all over the place. I'm in Western North Carolina. We just got hit really hard with these hurricanes, and we got towns that are still somewhat inaccessible. But the news you hear is not necessarily totally accurate. But what you realize very quickly is the 1% of people that are spouting off the thing that's not true are sometimes the loudest. And you'll find a lot of times when you when you partner with the wrong person, maybe even the wrong real estate agent, they can blow up your business with a crappy culture. And that might just be one relationship out of 20 that you have.
That's right. No, 100%, right? Like, louder is, negative is much louder than positive. That's just travels faster. So I want to, okay. So as we kind of move forward, just before we were talking about value proposition, we're talking about insight. So I want to give everybody an action item, if you will, right? This is the, executive coach part of me. And for those of you who don't know me, my career has been in mortgage as a salesperson, as a manager, and certainly as an executive leader for 20 plus years. And then, opening up my practice, as an executive coach, a year and a half ago. So when I lead recruit coaching or growth leadership coaching, the one thing I ask of people is, and I want to ask all of you to do this, spend some time and write out your competitive advantages. So write out your competitive advantages list. And here's what I would say. Write it out about yourself personally, write it out about your branch, and then write it out about your company. Okay. Then for those of you in management and leadership, ask your key players to do the same thing. Have them write out the competitive advantages, both personally, about the branch, and about the organization. Then align those up, because a couple things are going to happen here. Number one is you're gonna see some competitive advantages or how people talk about it maybe differently than what you saw. And then you're gonna come to some consensus, because now it's going to start getting articulate in how we communicate. Then of course how we connect, right? But here's the other side thing. And so everybody pay attention here, right? Like, this is important, because retention also happens as a result of recruiting. By doing this, you're going to remember, or you're going to have your key originators or branch managers and so on remember, these are competitive advantages that we might have forgotten about because it's just become normal here. But normal here doesn't mean it's normal somewhere else. At my prior company, when I was working at Finance of America, that was very common. We had so many great things, but we kind of forgot these were great things because they just became part of our normal life. And a lot of us didn't realize how great it was until it was gone, And I get that all the time. We did not realize how good we had it until it was gone, So this is a really, really good practice for all of you in management leadership. Do your competitive advantages personally, about your branch and about your company, and have your key players do as well. So that'll help extract that kind of value proposition outside of the product, if you will. So I just want to throw that out there as an action item.
Yeah. And maybe I'll expand on that a little bit, Craig. I think you and I were talking the other day about someone who called me that's in business development that was excited about a project that they were about to work. And when they explained it to me, and in this case, they were leading into how can I use the model match technology to help me identify these opportunities that meet this very particular criteria of a person or an opportunity. Well, that was the easy part. But what I was concerned about was that this person didn't have a strong sense of their own value proposition. To your point, they hadn't done the audit. So when you think about the sales funnel, right? So at the top, you're plugging in the insights that you're talking about, the prospects, based upon something specific. But I would argue that there's a level above that. Maybe it's called pre-funnel. I don't know. And it made me think of the movie Pulp Fiction with the wolf. You and I talked about this as well.
That's right.
So if you remember that scene from Pulp Fiction where Travolta shoots that guy accidentally in the back seat and his brains blow out all over the window. And then they've got to clean this car and they've got to fix this problem. And they go to Tarantino. I don't remember the character's name, but they go to his house and they call the wolf.
Yeah.
Well, what this person was doing was they were skipping all the way they were jumping into the funnel. But I said, what did the wolf do when Harvey Keitel shows up at Tarantino's house? Did he grab towels? Did he grab the hose? Did he grab soap and cleaning supplies? Did he set the car on fire? The first thing he did was he sat down with Samuel Jackson, Tarantino, and Tarantino and assessed the situation. And they assessed the situation. They talked about where they wanted to be, what the outcome was going to be. And then he gave very specific instructions to each one. If they deviated, he would remind them, do you want me to solve your problem? Or do you want to sit here and bitch about how you think there's might be a better way to do it? And so the concept here was that there is a very important piece that happens pre-funnel, and it's the assessment piece that you're talking about. At Model Match, and even before we started the technology, we used to break that down by coaching and consulting around 6 core competencies. So Model Match, like puzzle pieces, You've got your core competencies as a person and as a leader. You've got company core competencies. You might have branch core competencies, by the way, because a branch in New York City is not going to be the same as a branch in Franklin, Tennessee. There's some differences. And then you've got the core competencies of the opportunity that you're talking to, whether it's an agent or an originator or a branch. And those core competencies are things like business. That's the obvious stuff. Product, purchase to refi, volume, things like that. There's business, leadership, operations, geography, technology, and culture. And I said that word culture, right? And not that we're going to get into all of that today, but there's bullets under each core competency. One of the things that we found was that once you were certified relative to your core competencies, your confidence in having communication with people that you really don't know yet and they don't like you and trust you yet, that confidence goes through the roof. And it keeps you from doing things like what you just said, Craig, product dumping, going to the easy thing. Oh, we close loans in less than 30 days, or we've got a proprietary tech platform, or we got a killer single close construction product. The person on the other end might not give a crap about whatever it is you just put on the end of your line and threw into the pond, into the water, right? But it gives you that confidence to now ask questions and be able to bolt something about your core competencies onto a need or a want that opportunity might have.
Okay, dude. Okay, so there's really powerful stuff in here, right? Like again, and we're sort of tracking through the stages of recruiting, right? And so we're talking about insights, be the wolf, right? Like, right? It's the whole like, remember you guys like the wolf, right? Here's a funny thing, right? Like the Wolf of Wall Street. You guys remember like, sell me this pencil, right? And here's the thing, I'm gonna tie this together. Especially your every interaction should be not about you or the company. It should be about them, right? And their desired outcomes. How do you know what problem to solve if you don't even know what the problem is? And the other challenge is oftentimes the first thing you're hearing is not actually what it is. Like I remember I was in a recruiting conversation and yeah, like I don't really care about the marketing. I just want to care about, operations and what's your rate? Oh, okay. Well, then this is operations and this is your rate. I never talked about marketing. Thought I had this person nailed. We're coming in, get a call. Yeah, sorry. I chose to go to a different lender because they had great marketing. What? You told me you didn't care about that. I didn't keep asking. I didn't remain curious. I just got so excited that he told me something that I could share. And so it's really important that we really got to go slow. Ask insight questions, right? These are your hows and your whats. Ask questions, hows and whats, right? And here's something else to think about. Everyone just, I'm going to call it, well, I can't call it because I saw it on a social media post. The first 15 minutes of that conversation, you do not talk about yourself. Resist that urge to pounce and puke all over the guy or the gal, right? Tell them all about you and all about the company and all about the greatness. No. Resist, pull back, take a breath. But you can do that if you're prepared. Have insight questions. Have a framework to your conversation. So that's a lot of stuff that I talk about is, it's not necessarily a script, but a framework. So you know how to guide the conversation because information travels through our brain a certain way, right? First, we have to feel safe. Then we have an emotional connection because we've got 35,000 times more neurons in the emotion center. So, right. Then we can move to logic. Okay, there's our product stuff. Then we can make a decision. So there's a way that information travels. So we want to follow that, right? And something else you brought up, confidence, right? Because when we're confident, so much of this will happen naturally. When we're fearful or coming from scarcity, because I got to recruit, my boss is all over me, I got to recruit, right? So we get in that kind of desperation mode. When we're fearful, we also start trying to talk fast. We're selling, we're moving too quick, we're not listening, right? So, and fear versus confidence. So a good way to get confident is everything that we're talking about. So again, do your competitive advantages, know your insights, right? Try to get to know the candidate before you even make that phone call, right? Do the social media stalking, look at their posts, get a feel for this person, right? And have a framework to the calls, right? And there's a lot of ways that we can we can warm up an otherwise cold call as a result of this, right? And so I love how you how you pull that information out. And by the way, as we're doing this, we're going from insights to now we're making connections, right? And then we kind of get into discovery, right? When we are on the call with a candidate, right? This is about discovery, right? Really figuring out. And here's a powerful question. Write this question down, everybody. One of the greatest questions I'll ask is, so what are your biggest challenges? People will tell you everything. They'll tell you everything that's wrong with their company or their branch or whatever, Okay, just and listen. Don't pounce and solve that right there. Listen, probe, and keep asking more insight questions because they're going to give you all the answers. And then now let's cultivate that.
It makes me think of a story that maybe if I've spoken at any event that anybody's where I've, on this call that have seen me, maybe you heard this story before, but Casey Cunningham, who a lot of us know, Casey's an icon in this business, and she started Zenix, which was a one of its kind at its time. Long time ago, I asked Casey, when you made the move to Home Bank. So Casey was a mortgage banker. She was really good. And then she joined this company, Home Bank, that was a great mortgage banker in the Southeast for a number of years. Why did you join Home Bank? And her answer was, I had no intentions of leaving where I was. I was really happy. I was doing great. I was making good money. I was growing my business. And one day she got a phone call from either leadership or ownership at Home Bank. And she decided, what's the harm? I'll take the call. By the way, there's value in taking that call because you might learn something. I mean, even if you don't make a change, you might actually learn something from this call. And that's something, Craig, I'm sure we can come back to.
Yeah.
She took the call and she listened, and all they asked for was the next action. Hey, let me introduce you to our head of operations. You guys should know each other. So she jumped on, she talked to the head of operations a couple of days or a week later. Then a week or so later, she talked to head of marketing. Then a week or so later, she talked to the head of product. And this just kind of continued. She went through the core competencies is actually what she did. And eventually she realized, I'm not leaving a company. I'm joining a company. I actually see an opportunity for this value proposition to help me create multiples. It doesn't mean I'm leaving. There's nothing wrong with the company that I'm with. It's just, this is an elevated experience based upon what's most important to me, what's specific and unique to me and my business. She eventually joined the company just simply because they built a level of trust with her where she could see what the outcomes were. We get very impatient fighting for the transaction or fighting to win that producer. So that's one story to keep in mind that comes from someone that a lot of us know and that we have a lot of respect for. Another thing that you said that got me thinking, which is, you reach this point where oh man, I have to recruit, or, oh man, I have to go out there and build new relationships with agents because the market just adjusted and my business went down by 25%. I've got to somehow figure out a way to replace lost volume. Maybe everybody on this call should make a promise to themselves. Never be in a position to start recruiting again. Just don't stop. Every day, why wouldn't you want to learn about a new relationship or make a phone call to a referral partner that you're only picking up 5% market share with, where you could increase that to just 10? I mean, we're not talking that much, right? So the moment comes where the market adjusts, you're already in the midst of it. It's never stop. By the way, the people that you're in front of throughout the day, you're just not asking the next question, or they become a recruit. And when I say recruit, when we say that, let's think about an opportunity to just simply grow your business. You do a transaction with an agent or referral partner. Are you doing the next thing that would then help you get the next loan or the next referral or another agent in that office? And then the last thing I'll say, and then we'll come back to all this up, I'm sure, is that there is I would argue there's no such thing as a cold call anymore. And if there is, then the definition of cold call has changed dramatically. Because back in the day when I was sitting in a teeny little cubicle making tons of calls per day, it was with a stupid NBA CD-ROM that I was plugging in that the data was inaccurate the moment I got the CD-ROM because of the amount of time it took to get to me in the mail. Numbers, data, that's easy, man. We all have access to that now. The question is, how are you utilizing that data to build a story? And then how are you telling that story to create engagement? And then how are you managing that engagement to set an action and not close the opportunity. Close the action. Eventually the opportunity will present itself.
Dude, I love how you just said that too, man. You're using the data, and then what information from that data, and how do you tell a story, right? How do you connect your story to their story, right? And so much, and see how like this is relationship, right? And the other thing, which of course gets like, this is where I start jumping out of my skin, right? The whole start, stop, start, stop. And for anyone who's seen any of my marketing or what I've been doing, right? I've been pushing really hard because we're in business planning season right now, right? And my whole thing is, well, here's the thing. How many of you guys have written a business plan and never looked at it again? It doesn't work. And how many times you guys have written a business plan just to satisfy your boss and then still never looked at it again? So I've been pushing really hard right now, what I call your business blueprint. Shameless plug. I have a business blueprint accelerator next week. I think, Sonia, you'll put the link in later if anyone wants to join that. But I will help you design your business blueprint. And here's why. Because for so many of us, growth and recruiting is not our day job. I know throughout my management and leadership career, recruiting was was difficult because it was that start, stop, start, stop. That was me, right? And this is something I have succeeded massively with growth plan. I have failed massively with recruiting because recruiting is just an action. But when I was just only doing that, when I had a genuine growth plan that I just executed on every day, I was the number one grower at my company. So this is why we do need to slow down. And if growth is important to you and it's not your day job and you have to weave it into the already very busy desk that you have, like I understand branch managers and executives, right? I get it, right? You're running ops, you're managing your team, you got to do personal production, you got to know your margins, you got to have profitability. Oh, you also got to grow and everything else, right? It's hard to weave that in. So we want to have that designed into your business blueprint. We want to have that optimized into your day. And when we're thinking about it in the form of a growth plan, then we're sort of hitting it at different stages. We have a process. And I'm going to go back to what you're saying earlier, because that was really, really cool. Talking about Casey and how she was getting recruited to Homebake, right? And you said something like, is this person leaving a company or joining a company? Like two different things. Something's broken. I don't like it. Rates suck. Something happened. I'm short term. I'm going to leave because I want the next shiny new object, right? And we know that doesn't necessarily work. Versus joining a company from strength, right? Now, this is faster, right? This is fast recruiting, but it's also what has, I think, demonized the recruiting process in the mortgage business. This is slower. Getting people to join from a position of strength, going slower, sharing your story, building a relationship. This is slower, but this will last longer and it will help you build something so much more foundational. And that's everything that we're talking about, right? I'm trying to help unwind really what recruiting has been like in the mortgage industry over the last 10, 15 years, And I think it's happening. I do think it is starting to, I'm going to put my hand back up here. I think this is starting to happen a little bit more. I hope it will continue though. So
I don't think you're wrong about that. I also would say, in somebody that comes from originally the services side of this industry where, we were being hired to do that work on your behalf. Mm-hmm. And then transition that into a tech platform that was built around the best practices that we learned over 15 or so years of doing it. And we learned it not only because we became the experts, but the experts made us the experts, right? And it was through failure. It was through doing it the wrong way. It was through inefficiencies. That at the end of the day, the best quote recruiter for anything it is that you want to grow is you. It's not a third party. It's not an offshore dialer. It's not even a junior in your office. Now, I'm not saying that those things don't create value. They do create value. We could have a conversation around drip marketing campaigns and social media as well. I think there's a place for drip marketing campaigns in this business development process. I think there's a place for social media campaigns in this business development process, but none of it works unless you, the one that actually is going to be creating value for this human being, is the one that builds the trust through that process with that person. If it's someone else, your conversion rates are going to be a lot lower and your stickiness and retention is potentially going to be impacted as well.
Dude, all right. So let's talk about that, right? Because that's powerful. So again, branch managers, right? Originators, everybody, when it comes to your marketing, you hear the personal brand talked about a lot, right? That's even become a little bit of white noise. And I coach a lot towards personal brand because the thing is, your personal brand, again, it starts from right here before it can connect into your marketing. But it's so critical because going to your point, in these recruiting conversations, you have to understand what your personal brand is going back to, because that is how you're making that connection. Like I said earlier, people connect with people, not product. So the closer you are to understanding that. So then from a marketing standpoint, it's not marketing the company billboard. Here's all the things we're really great at. Hey, every now and then you throw out the billboard. No problem, whatever. But what are you doing to exude your personal brand? How are you educating the market? How are you showing what you care about? Because people care about what you care about. And then as you are going, again, here's your insight list of candidates, and you're on their social media and you're getting to know them a little bit. And then you're commenting on their posts, you're sharing their posts, you're making a connection, you're following them. Well, guess what happens? Your social media, your video, your post is going to get into their feed. They're going to start to get to know you. So then when you do make that first call, that call gets a whole lot warmer. Hey, Eric, this is Craig. Nice to meet you. I just want to let you know, like, I saw your post the other day and I loved what you said about fear versus confidence. I have to say, that's really meaningful. I thought this would maybe be a really good opportunity for me to call, introduce myself to you, because I just thought that was a thoughtful post. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Hey, I want to digress for just a second, if we
Yeah.
can, because all of a sudden I'm like, holy moly, it's 2:40. Like we're at least Eastern time. Like we're flying through this, which
Yeah.
doesn't surprise me. With those that we still have in attendance, I whether somebody does or they don't, I'd love to see what happens here. I'd love for people to start throwing in, and if you're an originator, don't worry about the word recruiting. It's just business development. It's growing your business,
Replace
right?
it with prospecting.
Exactly. I'm curious what your problem is. Do you know what your problem is? What is your hang up? What are you struggling with? Where are your gaps? Um, because with the time that we have left, Craig and I could do this forever, but it'd be cool to see what those comments are in the chat. And then Craig, we could go back and forth on on that as well. But yeah, man, whether it's social or through other campaigns, there's so much that we can learn through the intelligence and the insights that we have via data that can help us build the story. But the reality is then we have to get started on those processes that you were talking about, which is engagement. The data is great. And by the way, I mean, if you use the data appropriately, you can make a phone call to an agent and connect that agent to an originator or a lender, product mix, geography, transaction details, a borrower that you might have a relationship with, to be able to engage that person versus what a cold call used to be, which was, hi, my name is Craig. Can I come bring a box of popcorn to your office? I mean, you're laughing because you know that's how it used to be, right? I mean, that's what you used to be able to do. And then I'm
Hey, I
praying.
won that way, man. I dropped off a lot of donuts in my time.
No kidding. But the data on its own doesn't do anything for you. You have to use that data to build the story, begin your engagement, and then continue to use that data to almost build a pro forma that you can share with them that shows this person how you're going to create value for them. And then with that, something to think about. There's only two reasons why someone would make a change. And nobody has ever been able to convince me otherwise. And when I say that, think about an agent as well. Why would an agent take business away from a loan officer that they've already established a relationship with to go work with you, someone who they don't have a relationship with? Or why would a loan officer that's not looking for a job join your company and be part of the branch? There's only two reasons. It's the ability to do more business in the same amount of time, or the same amount of business in less time. Anything that I think someone would suggest is going to fall underneath one of those two buckets. It's an efficiency. Your agent might love you, but let me tell you what your agent really wants. Another commission, right? The loan officer you're recruiting might love you, but let me tell you what that loan officer really wants. They want you to help them find more time to do something, either spend it with their family and not make less money, or grow their business
Yeah.
and be able to make more money.
Well, and I dig that because again, when we're trying to carve out exactly what what they want, what their problem is, we know how to solve it, right? The way I kind of look at it sometimes is like, what if I break down you have the top 20, middle 60, bottom 20, right? The top 20 generally want more time. The middle 60 want more money. Bottom 20 just needs more loans, right? Now, so what are we
I
solving
love that.
for? What are we solving for in this? All right, so we do have a question here, and yes, please, and I'm happy you brought that up, by the way, Eric. At 11:30, I was going to do the, hey, we're in the second half of this thing, but we
Right.
just kept talking, so I appreciate it. So Wade, you're talking about defining your niche, defining your value prop. So Eric, do you want to touch on that?
I think it goes back to those 6 core competencies. Just to keep it simple, start thinking about who your organization is relative to those core competencies: business, leadership, operations, technology, geography, and culture. There's a number of bullets you can put down underneath each one. If an opportunity then falls outside of one of those core competencies so bad that they don't meet your criteria, you should not focus on that person. It's a waste of time, and your time is really, really valuable. As you go through those exercises, those core competencies, like Craig said, there's core competencies that are locked down at the top of the house relative to your organization. But then those things do change as you get geographic, and then as you get specific to who you are. Your management style might be different than somebody else that's only a state away from you. Your product mix might be a little bit different based upon the market that you're in. If you're in, LA versus Franklin, Tennessee again. The first thing you got to do is start there. Once you define your value proposition, then you need to define the criteria that meets the opportunities that you're looking for. And when I say opportunities, I use that word like, what are you looking for? A loan officer, a branch, an acquisition, a new referral partner, or the opportunity to develop more market share with a current referral partner. Define your criteria and then use the data that you have access to, whether it's through Model Match or other platforms, that will help you find those opportunities that actually match that criteria. Because there might be 1,000 opportunities in your backyard. You do not have time to go through those 1,000. And that's why you think drip marketing campaigns are your solution. And they're not. And by the way, those drip marketing campaigns might actually be creating a bigger problem for you, because people think they know who you are and they don't really know who you are. So by using the data, the market intelligence, after you define your criteria, out of 1,000, there might only be 50. And don't tell me that you don't have time to call 2 or 3 new people a day. That's it. I'm not saying 100, and eventually getting through those 50, and then have a platform to track the processes from identification through engagement, through nurturing, and ultimately through conversion. One of the things that, and I'm careful just not to sell our technology, but where Model Match, the tech, came from was from a group of people that were trying to figure out a solution to the problem of time. How do I save time in this sea of opportunities? Right? Model Match was built for that reason. We bolted on the data and the intelligence afterwards. So when we quote sell Model Match, well, I'm not selling you numbers or data. It's a solution. It's a process that creates a solution. So anyway, going back to that process though takes time. Commit to it and involve others and other key stakeholders in that definition of your core competencies and your value prop. One other thing, Craig, and then I'll stop. I'm the king, by the way, of one other thing. I was there 50 times. After you go through the bullets of what your core competencies are, let me tell you where the rubber really meets the road. Go find validating stories. It's one thing to say that you have great ops. We have the best underwriters. It's something else to say, you know what? Somebody from this company just joined us about 6 months ago. And one of the reasons they came over here is they were looking for better efficiencies relative to their operational loan flow. What they found after about 3 to 6 months of being here is because Joe, our head of underwriting, and the people on his team, he's now able to close 1 more loan a month with the time that he's been saved by not having to manage his pipeline so much. That's different than you saying we close loans in X amount of days. So define it with a bullet and then go find validating stories to bolt onto each core competency.
Dude, that's brilliant, by the way, right? Like, and I'll reframe that really quickly. Like, telling a story is relationship. Saying you have the fastest turn times is a transaction. So just be storytellers. Wrap it all up in this story. That's awesome, dude. All right. So Gary, getting past the reflex response of I'm happy, no interest in having any further conversation. So I want to add a little touch on that. And then Eric, I want to get your thought on that. So So first of all, again, let's frame this correctly. When you're making this first phone call, you're not calling to close a deal. You're calling to open a conversation. That's the very first thing. We're just calling to open a conversation. So my response to that would be like, oh, that's fantastic. Tell me a little more about that. What's making you happy? And then just get into a conversation. Be prepared with some insight questions, hows and whats. Tell me a little more about that. How is that? What happened there? And just start developing conversation, and that's fantastic. And then through that conversation, you're developing a relationship. And then that simple relationship, can that then just manifest into, that's awesome. Hey, tell you what, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Would you like to go get a beer sometime? Or whatever, right? We're all virtual now, but the point is you can move that into keeping in touch. You can move that into just a next step conversation. Hey, I love hearing about your growth plan. That's something I specialize on in my business blueprint design, because I'm working with Craig Davis, the best executive coach in the industry. So let me help you go through that, process with you and help give. This is about giving, not taking, right?
Yeah,
So
Gary, I know Gary. Gary's a pro. He's been doing this for a long, long time, and so he makes a lot of these calls. So more than others, he's getting hit with that reaction. Gary probably knows what I'm going to say because he knows me, and that is number one. That reaction is muscle memory. That reaction is a canned reaction because you're competing with a bunch of people that aren't good at taking the time to be patient and get to know, like, and trust. So know that the first time that happens, they're actually not saying no to you. They're saying no to all the other people that don't follow up and don't follow through and don't really care about them. So one of the tricks that I, coach around in the past is if that's happening and you felt like I need to get off the phone with this person because I'm running thin. They're going to get irritated with me. Just ask them, hey, look, I'll reach out to you in the next 30 to 60 days. That's what they want you to say anyway. But let me ask you a question. When I do, what would create value for you? Like, I'm curious, what are you trying to accomplish in the next 90 days? Do you have goals? Is there something you're looking to do? And maybe they'll say something like, I'm trying to get in with this new builder. I'm trying to establish a desk rental. Hey, I'm going to ask you about that when I call you in 90 days. I'm curious how that's going for you. I might learn something from you. And then set the action and hold yourself accountable to the action. By the way, this is where social media comes into play. Connect with them on social after that call. Let them know you enjoyed them. Start liking their content. But whatever action you sent 60 days out, have that note to ask them about what it was they told you. Even if they're going to freaking Cabo on vacation, ask them about that. So great question, Gary. I saw Tay Tolliver. What's up, Tay? Tay's awesome. So I love that he's jumping in here and giving some thoughts. Encourage recruits to call internal team members. Heck yeah, boy. Like this is not a one person sport. And this second you turn it into a one person sport, you're not going to create multiples and you're going to have a problem with retention. One of the things that's a hidden value of what Tay is saying is that number one, it validates it from another source who probably has something in common with this other person. Number one. But number two, after Tay does his job and gets this person hired, because Tay's great at what he does, that person's going to have a bad day. Sorry, I promise you, it's coming. They're going to have a bad day. But when they have a bad day, there's other people within the organization that they feel comfortable confiding in, there's a much better chance that them staying is going to be a possibility.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. I love it. And, even I was just reading here, Elizabeth, I was an underwriter processor for over 30 years. Such a big change from being in the office to now being in sales. Yeah. Amen. And right there, you have a huge value proposition that you offer to your clients and your referral partners, all that experience in underwriting and processing. There's a huge value proposition that you offer. So pull that thread and connect that. And you'll find that remember, it's not just about sales. It's about finding that connection, cultivating your people around you. Right. So,
you know what? The other thing I thought of with Gary's comment or thought is that, if what you did for a living at one point is you were, quote, just a recruiter, well, you actually loved it when somebody said, I'm happy where I am, because at least they're freaking talking to you, man. You know what I mean? Like, at least they had something to say, and you've now given me a shot to turn your happiness into a conversation. I try to say, get them away from talking about their company and get them more talking about their business. That's two different things. Because if I can eventually get them talking about their business, I might be the voice that gives them ideas that their current manager's not giving them.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, hey, well, that sounds great. Well, tell me, what are some biggest challenges right now? I mean, again, just what and how questions, and just be prepared with a couple insight questions, and you'll just get a conversation going. So
Agreed. Yep.
let's see. I'm just kind of looking at the chat a little bit. And I think, Eric, you said you also have a nice offer for everybody being a part of the Momentum Builder community here. Do you want to throw that out there?
Yeah, I'll throw it in the chat. So here, let me grab this hyperlink and I'm gonna throw it in here. Sonia, I probably should have given it to you so that you could control this, but here we go. So we have a an opportunity to play around with Model Match for free. It's access to the NMLS data, the real estate data. It's gives you kind of a good idea of where all of this intelligence can live in a way to help you tell a story. It goes down a pretty deep rabbit hole. So for those on the call today, I just threw a link in the chat section. Feel free to go grab that. If you just go to our website, you can navigate to that section, but I just sent up the link that'll send you directly there. If you're already a Model Match user, thanks for being a part of the family. Always, Wade, thank you for that. Always happy to jump in and help you figure out how you can utilize the intelligence to lead you towards opportunity and conversion. Craig, something I just thought about, there was a call that I was on earlier today with a head of strategy for a pretty decent sized mortgage banker. And he called me up because he wanted to start using Model Match for his core team. His core team is maybe 15 people, but the whole company has about 200 plus if you count their originators as well. And when I say 200 plus, I mean ones that are actually doing loans. When I look at the data of your companies and I can see how many LOs are doing zero. So I'm not talking about them necessarily, but he said something so refreshing. And it was, if we go with you full enterprise, this is a 3-year commitment. He was basically telling me, he wasn't trying to negotiate my terms. He was going way beyond what my normal terms are. And I said, why do you want that? And his answer was, because I believe once you pick something that works based upon due diligence, you can't just let the wind decide that something is wrong. And so, Craig, I think that goes back to the processes you were talking about. Once you build the process, just because you have a bad call or a bad experience or somebody falls outside of your funnel doesn't mean your process is broken necessarily. And if you have a process, you can at least evaluate at what stage did they fall off and where can we maybe get a little bit better. If you don't have a consistent, predictable process that your entire team shares, you can never do that.
Dude, and it's so, and again, I'll share one of my other philosophies, right? Lead people, manage process. So, my big focus certainly is in growth leadership. So within organizations, you have lots of branch managers trying to grow and recruit. Well, again, we all have day jobs. How do we weave that in effectively? Model Match, I think, is the best in breed, software, communication, data insights, but just, I'm going to say, conduit to growth leadership. That's how I look at Model Match. It's a conduit to creating growth leadership and process woven into your organization, right? And that's so critical to avoid going back to what we were talking about earlier: start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, inconsistency, guerrilla recruiting, fast, right? Now let's be thoughtful. And so you and I speak the same language. I talk about the 5 stages of recruiting, right? Here's your insights. Now we got to connect. Now we got to do discovery. Then let's enhance and advance. And as everybody goes through that, now we have optics, we have visibility, we have accountability. We know what to do in every stage. We know what kind of marketing we want to do in every stage. We know how to gather and use Model Match to integrate all these stages together. And you and I have talked a lot about that because you've designed Model Match in a very similar stage process and whatnot. And so,
Oh, 100%. Well, and you and I might differ on what we call those stages. And truthfully,
yeah,
with us, I mean, we're SaaS. So when our
yeah,
users say we want to call it something different, well, then we're going to roll out a customization opportunity for you to call it something different. What I do find interesting is we both have 5 stages.
yeah,
We just
yeah,
call them something different. And truthfully, you're a
yeah.
poet, so your stages are probably sexier sounding than my stages are. But yeah, I mean, totally true. The other thing that I think about, Craig, is that like when we were building the model matching process, so before
Yeah.
software, it was a verb and it was a process. What we were thinking about was what are the things that are just normal for you as a mortgage banker anyway? And that is the way a loan travels through the LOS. Well, think about your business development opportunities very similarly. What
Mhm,
is a prequal
mhm,
other than insights?
mhm, mhm, mhm.
Not a loan yet,
Yeah,
right? Well, that's your data to identify whether or not it can move to the next step. But as that loan travels through its next steps, processing, underwriting, clear to close, closing, funding, shipping, retention, those things don't change because a branch in Nebraska has a loan and a branch in Charlotte has a loan. If we're on the same in the same company, we're utilizing the same LOS, it's following the same process. Why are you managing your business development efforts differently? Why do you think it's done that way in the LOS? It's for efficiencies. It's for compliance. It's to create multiples. It's to buy you more time. Treat your business development efforts the same way.
I love it, brother. Well, we're right on the hour. Quick shout out and announcement next week. Dave Savage is on. He'll be interviewing Sean Herrero, which is awesome. If you guys don't know who Sean is, definitely check him out, man. He's a cool dude. Great. And you'll learn some great tactics about growing your origination in a simple way, right? So super excited to announce that. And then the following week, we got our Nate McVicker and Katrina Orlando on. So I'm super excited about that. Big fans of Nate and Katrina. Deliver with confidence. So keep joining you guys. Appreciate everybody being on here. Eric, I appreciate you, brother. What a great conversation. Always a to be continued conversation. So we're right on the hour. Thank you, everybody. Go forth and succeed.
Love it. Thanks, y'all.